friends, and welcome to Faerireads, where we talk about things that make the mundane more magical, namely books. And today we're specifically talking about the books I read in December 2020, so if that sounds interesting to you, just keep watching. So before we get into the books, just as a quick sort of programming note, this is the first time I'm filming wrap-ups this way. I decided to break the month up into 2 videos. Hopefully that will cut down on me rambling so long and my videos taking forever, but also it will help me talking about the books I read, because I noticed, especially in November when I read a lot of books, it was really hard for me to rack my memory back to the beginning of the month and have something worthwhile to say about the books that I read so long ago. So hopefully by dividing it up like this, it will be better for everyone. The first book I read in December was High Achiever by Tiffany Jenkins. This is something I listened to on audiobook, and it is a memoir about Tiffany's life and her experience as a drug addict. And this was something that I hadn't heard about really. I just saw it on my library website when I was browsing for audiobooks to read, and I knew the subtitle is something like One Addict's Guide to Achievement or something, or Inspirational Guide to Achievement or something. And I just thought, hey, I like an inspirational story. I'm trying to be more aware about the drug world in general, because I'm just very naive when it comes to things like that, and I know drug addiction is like a huge problem in our country and the world at large, and I'm hoping that by reading about books like these I can understand more about what it's like to be an addict and like things that we can do as a country to kind of help address and solve the problem. After reading the book itself, it kind of fell short of those lofty goals. It's not like, you know, it's a memoir. It's not going to tell you how to solve all the world's problems, but I do feel more compassionate to the addict's experience after having listened to this. And really when it starts off, she's telling about her arrest and how she ended up going to jail. And well, first she's locked up in a, I forget the name of it, but like a specific facility in the jail where addicts have to go and get clean first. And so she talks about the experience of withdrawal and then just being in jail, which is complicated by the fact that upon her arrest, she was treated really poorly because she had really screwed over her boyfriend, who happened to be a cop. And so, of course, going into the jail system, having to deal with so many police officers, they were upset with her because they took it very personally that she had betrayed her friend and went against her friend. And so it was just an interesting look at the inside of that justice system, that part of the justice system, I guess. And I've read books like, I read a few books this year on incarceration, like Free Centoya, and I feel like there was another one I read this year that had to do with this topic. But I don't know, I sort of enjoy listening to these stories because I always think of going to jail as being like the worst thing that could happen to a person. And so hearing someone's story of how they went through it and like came out on the other side, that part is really inspirational. And just her story itself is inspirational. I have a lot of sympathy for addicts in general, and it was very eye-opening to hear things from her perspective. And yes, she does realize that she was wrong to do the things that she did, and she owns up to that, and I do believe, you know, she paid the time, she paid the price for it. But you do have to realize that their addicts are not acting themselves. It's the drugs talking, it's the drugs doing everything for them. One notable thing about the memoir is just Tiffany's humor and voice. She's very funny, and I didn't realize this until I was like at least halfway through the story when I googled her just to like see what she looked like, because I didn't know what she looked like and I wanted a better mental image. And she's actually a YouTuber. She's kind of like an internet sensation, and apparently that's what led to her book deal, I guess, was that she became a sort of viral superstar after talking about being a mom and like overcoming addiction into being a mom, and like how that still affects her life, and just being like #relatable on the internet. I guess has made her very famous, but she's very funny. And I did end up watching one of her videos. It was like the most recent one at the time that she did with her current husband, her now husband. So I do want to mention that in case any of you have follow her and you didn't realize she has a book. She does have a book out now. But I do want to mention a few things that bothered me. And I don't know if it was just an audiobook thing or what. I did come across a review on Goodreads that kind of validated my feelings about this. But Tiffany herself narrates the audiobook, and whenever she's talking about specific people that she met in jail or from her past life, she puts on a black scent. I feel like there's no better word for it, but she begins to like change her voice and talk ghetto when talking for other people, and we're assuming people of color just by the tone of her voice and the way she talks, and that's just not cool. I can understand when people narrate or tell a story, they do different voices for different characters, but you don't have to go that far. Even if the person does talk that way, I just feel like that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So that was the kind of big thing that took me away from the story. I did keep listening to it because, again, I did want to hear what happened to her. I was really sucked into her story, and it is very compelling the way that she tells it, and the way that you kind of start at her arrest and then you go back and forth and like finding out how she got there. And she does, like, even at the beginning of the story, she mentions, I'm married now. And then as you're listening to the story, you have to figure out, who did she marry? How does that person fit in the story? And it's just a very interesting way to get you sucked into her story. And I wanted to see it through to the end. And that part, I really enjoyed that aspect. Like, she does have a storytelling gift and charisma about her. I'm not sure if she had a ghostwriter or not, and to be honest, if she did, I really don't care. But I thought she was talented in that way. She does have a way with words. Overall, I enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars just because of how compelling and interesting it was. But again, there were some faults to it for sure. But if you're interested in stories of addiction, memoirs, stories about the justice system and incarceration, I think you should at least give it a try. Next, I finally finished Harley, Merlin, and the Secret Coven. This is the first in a series by Bella Forrest. And this is one of those series that I think it's on Kindle Unlimited. I don't have Kindle Unlimited anymore. I used to, but I have since canceled. So I did purchase this a while back. I read this one mostly based on a recommendation from a friend who has a very similar reading taste to myself, and I'd also seen a lot of ads on it on my Kindle or on Amazon or whatever, and it's like called a grown-up Harry Potter, which, you know, I'm always skeptical when things are compared to Harry Potter, but there are quite a lot of similarities. It follows our main character, Harley. We meet her, she is called Harley Smith because she's an orphan, and she suddenly sort of just gets like recruited for this coven, basically, because she has these powers that she thought were just like, she was just a freak of nature and she was the only one that was dealing with these kind of things. And then she basically gets recruited by this coven, and she realizes there's this whole world of like people with magical abilities, and she joins the San Diego Coven. I think it's San Diego. But while she sort of enters this coven on a trial period as she's sort of learning about the world and kind of learning how to control her magic. It's kind of like she goes back to school and she has to take classes with like teenagers and children that are like just now learning how to use their abilities. But she's also recruited to help the coven solve this big mystery that's been plaguing the coven. Basically, in this world, there are gargoyles, which are caused by an excessive power that exists within a magical person, and they have to like purge themselves before like their power, like, I don't know, burns up their body or something. And they have a place in the Coven where they're storing, or they don't store, but they house these gargoyle creatures, and the gargoyles keep escaping, and they have to figure out why it's happening, who's doing it, is it someone sabotaging the Coven, blah blah blah. And so she gets roped into that, and the more she actually, and it's while she's solving this mystery and trying to figure out who's behind it all, she also uncovers a lot of information about herself and about her past, her family. So it's a very like self-discovery kind of story, and there's a hint of a romance or two, kind of a love triangle is set up, or a romantic triangle like I called it in my last video. But there's a bit of that, but it's not really prominent in the story. But I think it will, you know, take shape in later books. I really like the premise of this, and it kind of suffers from like the first book syndrome. There's just like a lot of exposition, a lot of setting up, a lot of world building, and I'm more of a character driven reader, I think. And so most of the things we learn about the characters are more at a surface level, but I can see myself, if I continue reading this series, growing to love the characters more after, you know, spending time with them. So I give it 3 stars because, like I said, it has a lot of potential. I also like the kind of multicultural aspects that she's included in this world. I'm not the best judge of this, I'll admit, but to me, it seemed to honor sort of different legends and mythologies around the world dealing with magic in a less appropriative way than some people, like she who must not be named. But again, I don't know, maybe I'm not the best judge of that. But all in all, it was a lot of fun. It was fast-paced, easy to follow, very action-packed, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Next, I finished Your Life in My Hands by Rachel Clarke. This is another one I listened to on audio. It is a medical memoir about Rachel's time working in the NHS as a doctor. So this is very similar to something I read in October, which was Adam Kay's This Is Going to Hurt. After enjoying that so much, I decided, hey, why not read another book that's very similar by another doctor in the NHS and about their experience. Adam's is far much more comical. Rachel's is much more subdued and kind of just serious. And she also, of course, gets really political, which I saw people criticizing her for that in a review, but it's inherently a very political job, I would say. And I just hate it when people criticize people who aren't in politics for talking about politics as if you can't do that. That just really irks me. But I didn't think she was especially heavy-handed, and given her job, she had every right to say to make all the points that she made. But again, as someone who's wanting to understand the healthcare industry a little more, and hopefully we can go to more nationalized healthcare in the US and make it accessible to everyone. It was really informative. There's a lot of, you know, good stories about her experience, and just like Adam Kay's book, very touching and heartwarming in some moments, and just like tragic and depressing in others. But it was just really good, so I gave it 3 stars. The last book I finished is something that I was really excited about, and I mentioned in, I think it was on my last On My Radar, which is a series which I've started, in which I talk about books that are new to me or books that I'm eyeing and wanting to read. And it's called Rebel Rose by Emma Theriault, and it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but it's more of a continuation, I guess you would say. So it takes place after the curse has been broken, and Belle and the Beast are married and living together and trying to overcome the challenges that, you know, a commoner and a prince would face in a married relationship. And it's also taking place at the cusp of the French Revolution. So there's a lot of political goings on, a lot of civil unrest and kind of populist uprisings are happening, and it's like a sort of commentary on that and just the social dynamics, like I said, of a commoner being with a member of the French ruling class. And it's interesting. I thought the writing was good, the pacing was good, and it was clear that the author had done her research, and there was a lot of historical facts kind of woven into the story. In fact, it kind of seemed a bit like heavy-handed to me at some points. I don't know. I was kind of like, get on with it. We know you know what you're talking about. Let's just cut to the chase, get to the next point in the story. But it was fun. I think what I liked the most about it is that the villain, well, there's sort of multiple villains, but comparing this to a recent read, I just finished reading A Curse So Dark and Lonely in October, which is another Beauty and the Beast retelling, and one of my major qualms with that was that the villain is the enchantress in the story, and she was just very one-dimensional and just not a very good villain in my opinion. And the enchantress character in this retelling is much more developed, and you understand why she put the curse on in the first place, and it's given more of a realistic purpose, I think, and like given a more real-world historical setting, it manages to make a lot of sense. The political intrigue and the conflict developed around that, I thought that was all really well done, but I would have appreciated more romance. Being this hopeless romantic I am, I guess, I just would have appreciated more of the relationship between Belle and the Beast. He's called Leo in this story. That was much more of like a back burner thing, and so that was a little disappointing because to me that's sort of my favorite part about Beauty and the Beast is their dynamic, their courting, their relationship, and how it develops. But it was sweet and it was fun, and it was a pretty short read, and I'm thankful for that, to get through another book pretty quickly. So all in all, I give it 3 stars. So those are all the books that I've read in the first half of December. It's been a pretty good month so far, but yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys think, if you've read any of these books, or what your impressions are of them, how your reading month is going, if you have any goals for 2021. Yeah, I just love to hear from you. And thanks for watching. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, you know, wherever you are in the world, whatever you celebrate. I just wish you well and that you have a great New Year. Whatever. Thanks for watching. Bye.